Hi everybody, Fintan here from Dams and Cloud, and this week I want to talk about ransomware and how you can protect your business against ransomware with Google Workspace. I know it's a topic that many businesses are interested in, and so if you want to know more, you know what to do. Stay tuned. Every year, ransomware costs businesses $20 billion. And on average, it takes more than 21 days to recover fully from a ransomware attack. And that's if you're prepared. So many of our customers do ask us about ransomware, particularly because of the recent ransomware attacks, both in the US and actually here in Ireland as well. And I know in recent years, there's also been many in the UK and the rest of Europe. So it's an ongoing challenge for organizations. Ransomware is a piece of software that gets onto a user's machine or onto a business's server and encrypts files and documents that it comes across. It's very dangerous for businesses because they lose access to their own information, and often then there is a ransom charged for the business to get access back to their information. Now, statistically, even if you pay the ransom, only in about 50 or 60% of cases do people actually, or businesses actually get access to their information again. So even paying the ransom, no matter what it is not necessarily a guarantee that you will get your information back. What I'd like to do is talk about the 5 different pillars of cybersecurity that are recommended. It's a framework basically that's recommended by the National Security Group that will help you as a business inform your choices around security and around cybersecurity to reduce the risk of a cybersecurity attack, and in the event that one happens, that you know what to do. So NIST, or the National Institute for Standards and Technology, has come up with a cybersecurity framework that helps organizations prepare for something like a ransomware attack. There are 5 core pillars. The first is identify, the next is protect, the third is detect, and the 4th and 5th are respond and recover. I'm going to go through each of these and talk about what is recommended in each area, and then how Google Workspace can support you in this particular area. So let's get into it. So the first is identify, and it's important here to look at and identify the different areas of risk within your business. What are the devices, the users, the systems that you have in place that could potentially be vulnerable to a ransomware attack? You've got to protect those devices, you've got to protect those users, and you've got to protect those systems in terms of password protection, in terms of firewalls, whatever the case may be. You've got to protect those different systems from a ransomware attack. But the first thing that you need to do is identify actually what they are. Okay, so that's the first thing that you need to do. Within Google Workspace, there are systems that will allow you to identify, obviously, the users, if Google is your primary source of identity management, and also identify the devices that are listed or connected to your Google Workspace environment as well. The next area is protect, and this is probably one of the most important ones. This is where you look at the different systems that you've identified and you try to mitigate against a ransomware attack happening on one of these systems. Okay, so within Google Workspace, you have the ability to protect your users with strong passwords. You can enforce strong passwords. You can also enforce 2-step verification, and this is a really simple way to mitigate against an account being compromised within your environment. And we recommend that all of our customers have 2-step verification for every single user within their business. I know when the HSE attack happened here in Ireland, many of our customers contacted us, and 2-step verification was one of the first things that we told customers to do. And it was an easy way that every business could implement 2-step verification across all of their users and stop those accounts from being compromised. There are multiple forms of the second step verification. It can be a phone prompt, it can be a security key, it can be a text message prompt, although that's not very secure in of itself. But there are many different ways that you can have two-factor authentication within Google, and we recommend that everybody does this. The next is just being cloud native. Actually having your information in the cloud in a system like Google will reduce the likelihood of a ransomware attack. Google has fantastic phishing and anti-spam filtering built in, and so this will protect your user base against a lot of phishing and spam attacks. You can as well put in place advanced phishing, which will further protect your users against this as well. Next up, we have Beyondcorp. Beyondcorp is Google's sort of methodology as well as a service and product that they sell, meaning beyond the corporation. So trying to get away from these older technologies like VPNs and firewalls and thinking of security in a different way, where we move more towards the user and the device as opposed to this kind of firewall moat around the business. So beyond the corporation. And with everybody working from home now, this actually is more important now than ever, because people's computers aren't actually behind the corporate firewall. They're in their home offices, they're connected to their own internet connections. And so what Beyondcorp is about giving access in the moment. So giving people access in the time and the moment that they need it, and then removing that access when it's not required. It also uses a system called context-aware access. Basically gives you access in context. So it looks at the user, but it also looks at the device that they're connecting from and says, do I recognize this device? And gives the user access based on that context of where they're connecting from, what device they're connecting from, and then whether they have their password, their two-step verification, all of these different things in the context of that particular user. And maybe if they are on a device that the system doesn't recognize, then it doesn't give them access to, say, Google Drive, but it gives them access to the email. So they can access their email and respond to email, but they can't access the corporate information. So the idea of this is to try and protect against maybe more sensitive systems, and then after the person's device has been approved by IT and approved that it's definitely them, then they get that additional access, and that's that Beyondcorp and that kind of context-aware access. So Beyondcorp and the zero trust model also extends to other areas around endpoint management, and many people aren't aware of this, but within Google Workspace now in the enterprise editions and even in some of the Business Plus, you have levels of endpoint management where you can actually manage endpoint devices, whether that's a mobile device or whether that's a laptop like a Mac or a PC. You can actually take hundreds of different actions on those devices and those machines and protect again your end users and their devices as well. The next area is detect, and again this is around ensuring that your systems actually will detect a ransomware attack when it happens. Now within Google Workspace there are systems like DLP, data loss prevention, that will allow you to take actions again in real time when your end users maybe come across a particular file or a particular download or attachment. Data loss prevention will allow you to take action on that in real time. And the DLP features are primarily available in Google Workspace Enterprise Standard and Plus, so they aren't available on those lower tiers, but very, very powerful for organizations that do have those features. The next two areas are admin alerts, which is available on all Workspace plans, and the security center. Admin alerts will allow you to set up automated alerts for administrators, again, when certain actions are taken within Google Workspace. This could be a compromised account. It could be maybe activity that looks sort of suspicious, such as someone logging in from a different location or a different jurisdiction than where they normally are. And then the security center is an extremely powerful central place for administrators to go to see everything that's happening within the Google Workspace environment. Again, this is only available on Google Workspace Enterprise Plus, but this feature is extremely valuable and useful for customers. Again, these super admins that can go in and see what's happening on their infrastructure in one single pane of glass, essentially. The next area is respond. And this is kind of a hard one because this is assuming that some sort of attack has taken place and that maybe you've lost access to some of your information. But what it's saying here is that it's important to actually have some sort of response plan in place, because if you don't have one in place, then when or if an attack does take place on your business, you're not necessarily going, you're not going to be able to make the best decision in the moment. And so it's good to have thought about what you should do, what communication methods you should have in place. If you can't use your email, if you're locked out of your email or your Slack or Google Chat or any sort of communication systems, do you have some sort of backup that you can communicate with your staff in a secure fashion? And do you have an incident response plan? What we often say with people with this, we do security reviews for customers, and we will review your entire Google environment, and as part of that put in place a response plan for Google should an incident take place. But one thing we always say is make sure you don't store it directly on your Google environment. Have a copy elsewhere, maybe in a private account, because again, if a ransomware attack takes place and you lose access to your files, that response plan may very well be in there as well. Okay, so very, very important to do a response plan, but also keep a copy outside of your sort of standard business systems as well. And the final area is recover. And this is where it's really important to take a backup of your system. So in the eventuality that everything, despite you kind of doing everything to protect your business, if something does go wrong, and remember, it doesn't matter how many systems you put in place, your weakest link is going to be, someone clicking on a download, or indeed maybe a rogue employee actually doing something on purpose within the business to implement ransomware. You can never 100% protect yourself against ransomware. So having some sort of, again, the response plan, but also the recovery plan in place, and having a backup of your data is really important. We recommend AFI. AFI is one of the best backup solutions for Google Workspace and Google Cloud. It will back up your data in real time. It will keep multiple copies and versions of your data, and also has built-in ransomware protection where its systems will actually detect mass encryption and mass deletion of files and take action to back up the latest copy of your data in real time, as well as alerting administrators on the domain that a ransomware attack is actually happening at the moment. So I would recommend that you take a look at AFI. We have another video on that if you want to take a look at it. And then basically your plan is coming around again. So you're coming back then to identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And it's basically a cycle that you're continuing to do and continuing to keep up to date as a business. I hope you guys found this update valuable and useful. If you're a business out there that maybe has had a ransomware attack yourself, and you would like to give some hints and tips to other people, or if you think that there's anything that you've done within your organization that you maybe think would be useful for other people, please do let us know in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel or our LinkedIn or our other social medias, please do so. We are also on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and I will chat to you guys next week.